NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, let's dive right in. We got a bit to talk about in this episode, a lot of important things to talk about in this episode. We're going to focus mostly on the first round matchup between the Celtics and the Nets. But before we do that, we obviously do have to talk about the Cavs-Nets play-in game and just discuss some of the things we saw in that and what happened. Obviously, I gave it away if you didn't know. The Nets did indeed beat the Cavs to advance to the first round to play the Celtics in the play-in game. It was a game that was interesting because despite the final score, 115 to 108, so only a 7-point victory by the Nets, it never really felt like the Nets had a chance to lose that game. Like, I never felt that agita or that nervousness that I feel sometimes with this Nets team when they have a big lead and will they not let the other team back into the game. Like, I never felt that in that game. And look, give credit to the Cavs. They were down by 20 points at the half. They battled back in the second half and made it respectable. But I still never felt like the game was in jeopardy for the Nets. Like, I never felt that. And maybe it had to do with the fact that Kyrie Irving was just lighting it up, 9 for 9 in the first half, 12 for 15 overall. Or maybe it was the fact that, Kevin Durant didn't have to shoot a lot and the Nets were still playing really, really well offensively. Maybe it was the fact that for the first time in a while, we saw some pretty good defense from the Nets. Claxton had 5 blocks. Bruce Brown had a couple blocks. KD had some great help defense. Kyrie was playing well. They weren't doing stupid switching all the time like I touched upon in my last NetsBoy episode. I think that's what it was. I feel like just those three things, the efficiency of Kyrie, the fact that KD didn't have to do a lot, at least scoring-wise, and the fact that the defense of the Nets looked good, I just never felt this game was in question. And it wasn't. Nets won, and they advanced to play the Celtics. And look, I saw a lot of good things in that play-in game. And I pretty much just touched upon them all, but the biggest thing is definitely that defense. I think that when Steve Nash shortens this rotation, like he did, he played 9 people in that game. And that's what you should do in the playoffs. Your playoff rotation should always be shrunken a bit. He played a 9-man rotation. I think that helped this team tremendously on the defensive end because it allowed the defense to know what to do because you had the same consistent players playing together on the defensive side. And the more that Steve Nash sticks to this smaller rotation, the better the chemistry would get, the better that the role players would get because they know what to expect from them role-wise. And I really think that played a huge factor in why the Nets defense was, look, the Nets defense wasn't great, right? It wasn't great. They gave up 107 points. I mean, it was great in the first half. Well, they only gave up like 41 points in the first half, but then they gave up over 60 points in the second half. So it wasn't, it wasn't great, but it was good. And it was good enough to make sure that the Nets were able to hold on and win that game. And I think a lot of it had to do for a number of factors, but the biggest thing was the shrinking of the rotation. There's some things in basketball, like the little things like that, can play a big factor. Players know their role now. Players know what defensive assignments they need to do when they're playing together. And that, I think, was a big reason why we saw a lot of the defensive lapses we saw, as touched upon in my last NetsBoy episode. The overcommitment on help defense is because you don't know your defensive assignment. All right, the unnecessary switching is because, once again, you don't know what player you should switch off to or what player you need to help out. But when you have a shorter rotation, less players involved, it's easier for the chemistry to form, especially on the defensive end. And I think that's a big reason why the Nets played so much better defense in the Cavs. game, and I think it's why I believe the Nets defense is going to be much better in the first round against the Celtics. So, great win by the Nets. They advance to be the 7 seed. We'll see what happens with the other play-in game. It's going to be, it's going to be Friday night. We'll see what happens. I don't really care. That's why I'm doing this NetsBoy episode now, instead of waiting until all the playoffs have been decided, because the Nets have been decided. So, great win. And very happy to see the greatness that we saw in that game, especially from Kyrie, which was just ridiculous, and everything about everything. So, by the way, anybody see Claxton's like kind of buzzer beater jump shot from like right in front of the 3-point line? Like, why doesn't he do that more often? Like, I think we've seen Claxton make threes last year, so we know he can shoot the ball. So that's the next step of Claxton's development, in my opinion, is developing more of a jump shot like that. But I thought that was great. I laughed when that went in. And when that went in, I said to myself, Nets are winning this game 100% because everything's falling the Nets' way there if Claxton's going to make that shot in that situation. Same thing with Kyrie Irving's buzzer beater at the end of the half, that ridiculous fadeaway shot. Like, when things like that are happening, you know it's your night. And so, like, that could have been the other reason why I didn't feel like that game was in jeopardy for the Nets. But anyway, enough about that. Enough about the Cavs and the play-in game. We got to focus on the task at hand and the big matchup, Celtics-Nets. Same exact first-round matchup as last year, except the seedings are reversed. Last year, the Nets were the 2 seeds, Celtics were the 7. This year, the Celtics are the 2 seed, and the Nets are the 7. Now, there's a lot of discussion about this series. There's a lot to digest and a lot to look at and a lot to try to figure out. A lot of factors involved in this series. A lot of storylines. Obviously, one of the biggest ones is the injury situation for both teams. Rumor is Ben Simmons is expected to play at some point in the series. They're now saying they expect him back as maybe around game 4. Same exact narrative is with Robert Williams and the Celtics. They expect him now to return during the first in this series as well, and they're expecting around game 4. Look, between you and me, I don't think either of them are going to play in the series. I don't think we're seeing Ben Simmons. I don't think we're seeing Robert Williams. I think it's gamesmanship. Gamesmanship by both teams. And I think it was started by the Nets, and the Celtics followed suit. Because originally, the Celtics were pretty pessimistic about Robert Williams playing in the first round. But then the Nets came out and said, oh, well, Ben Simmons might play. I don't think it's a coincidence. Like a day later, you hear, oh, well, Robert Williams might play. And then, oh, well, Ben Simmons might play by game 4. Oh, well, now Robert Williams might play by game 4. Like, it's just a cat and mouse, showmanship game between the Nets and the Celtics right now. And I think it's all talk. It's made to make the defensive schemes and the offensive schemes of the teams and the scouting reports to get off because you have to scout for them or not scout for them or figure it. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see Ben Simmons on the court. I'll believe it when I see Robert Williams on the court, okay? And if what we're hearing is true, they're both going to basically come back around the same time, and it's going to be a very interesting series. But I'm going to base everything off of what I see right now from this Nets team and what I expect from it, and same thing with the Celtics team. So, that being said, we really got to think hard about what we think is going to happen, or I got to think hard about what I think is going to happen in this series. I'm going to be honest. This series could go any way or be anything. I mean, I don't think I've seen a more even series on paper in a long time when it comes to the fact that you have two teams that are predominant of their offense, have two superstars on their team each. KD and Kyrie for the Nets, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the Celtics. They both have really good role players that sometimes disappear. Marcus Smart, Derek White, Al Horford. Those are really good role players on the Celtics, but sometimes they have off nights. Just like Patty Mills, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, same exact thing. The advantage that most people are saying for the Celtics and why most people are picking the Celtics is the Celtics defense. How they have one of the best defensive in the league. How, they finish in the top tier in almost every defensive category. And I understand that. And a lot of that, though, has to do with Robert Williams. He was the defensive anchor of that team, and he was a big reason why they had such good defensive numbers. Now, they're still a really good defensive team without Robert Williams, but he makes them an elite defensive team. And then people point out the defensive inefficiencies of the Nets, which we all know is a big issue. So that's why most people are saying the Celtics will probably win this series. Some are saying 6 games, some are saying 7 games, because despite Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving's, amazing abilities and ultimate offensive gifts and skill, it's not going to be enough. That's what everyone's saying. And I understand it. And look, those people who are saying that could be 100% right. And it could be a 6-game, 7-game series in which the Celtics win. But now, I got to be honest with what I think. And I said this before when the Nets lost to the Celtics earlier in the regular season. I don't know what it is. And I could eat these words. And I'm sure Celtic fans don't know if anyone is actually watching this video, because I don't know why a Celtics fan will watch this video unless they want to try to figure out what the Nets fans' perspective is of the situation is. I don't know. You never know. Celtic fans will probably want me to eat these words, but I said this before. I'm not afraid of the Boston Celtics. I'm not. I'm not afraid of any team in the Eastern Conference except for the Milwaukee Bucks, which we don't want to look too far ahead. If the Nets do get past the Celtics, they're almost certainly going to play the Bucks, which if that does happen, we'll talk about that then. To me, the Bucks are the only team that's really better than the Nets, the way the Nets are right now, without Ben Simmons. I don't care what people think about the defensive issues this Nets team has. I don't care what people say about their lack of role players and depth. Poppycock to that. That's what people say when they don't watch this team play every game, and that they just simply base it off of the few games they've seen, and then they look at the stat sheets at the end. Because that's what a lot of people do. I watch every minute of every freaking Nets game this year. Okay? I have done that. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly and all this stuff with this Nets team. And now look, I haven't seen everything with the Celtics. I'll be the first to admit that. I've watched a couple Celtics games when they're on national TV here and there. I've obviously watched it when they play the Nets. Maybe I'm being overly biased too because of that same reasonings I just gave. I don't see the Celtics all the time. But I'm just not afraid of that team. We see how great Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are. We're witnessing it firsthand. And not only are we seeing it, they're clicking at the right moment. The playoffs. And we've seen this from Kevin Durant in particularly. He has another level come playoff time. He always has. He's always been a guy that just has this extra gear he hits when the playoffs start. And it's not scoring, because everyone thinks, oh, Kevin Durant's such a great scorer. It's not a scoring gear. He's always an elite scorer. It's the other things. And we saw that in the Cavs game. The help defense, he had 3 blocks. The rebounds, he in the games that mattered, he had a triple-double towards the end of the season. His passing ability. The fact that he wants to guard some of the best players down the stretch. He was, in the win against in the win against the Cavs, he's guarding, Mobley, who obviously is a very good athletic big. He's helping defense. He's engaged in everything that you need to do in the game other than score. And we see that at this level with Kevin Durant when it matters the most. We see Kyrie Irving really being engaged on doing everything he can to put that ball in the basket, attacking the basket. We've seen all these things. Do I really think that's going to stop in the playoffs with these two guys? Do I really think Kevin Durant, who has a track record of elevating his game and being one of the best players in the game, do I really expect him to crumble in the moment? Do I expect Kyrie Irving, one of the most prolific scorers, a guy who went 12 for 15 in a game that mattered, a guy who locked down James Harden to prove a point against the 76ers? Do I think he's going to fade away? The answer is no. Will Jaylen Brown? Will Jason Tatum? Will Marcus Smart? Al Horford? I don't know. Those guys are all very good. Heck, Tatum is a superstar. Jaylen Brown is knocking at the door of being a superstar. But they're still not proven. That Celtics team is still not proven anything. There's not one player on that Celtics team that has proven championship worthiness. The Nets have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Patty Mills, all who have won an NBA championship currently on this Nets team. So they know what it takes. They know what it's needed. And until I see the Celtics prove otherwise, I'm just not afraid of them. And I guess I look at it this way. Do I believe Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can outplay Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant 4 out of 7 times in a game, in a series? The answer is no. I don't believe that. It can happen, and I think it will happen, but not 4 out of 7 times. I'm sorry, I don't. And that's not meant to be a knock on Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. It's meant to just let you really understand just how great KD and Kyrie are and how great they've been playing. And, look, the Nets lost a game earlier, towards the end of the year against the Hawks when Kyrie and KD combined for 85 points and they lost. I get it. That can happen. But to me, that was an anomaly. Because if you get both those guys combining for 85 points, you're probably going to win most games. So look, will the Nets win? I don't know. Should the Celtics be favored? I agree with that assessment. I do. But I'm not afraid of them. And I just believe that the Nets, in particular Kevin Durant, is going to elevate their game to another level. Now, not a fan of Bruce Brown calling out Al Horford and Daniel Tice in that press conference after the Cavs game. Thought that was stupid because, bro, why are you even talking about that right now? You just won the play-in game. And also, don't give the team any ammunition. I'm a firm believer of extra motivation. I like Kevin Durant saying, man, stop talking, just hoop. Because I agree with that. So I'm not a fan of that. But I'm still not afraid of that Celtics team. But look, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe when the series is over, Nets lose in 6, and I'm like, damn, I guess I misread the whole Celtics team. That could happen. But I don't think so. So right now, wrapping up this episode, I'm going to be really bold. Really bold. Nets in 6. That's right. And that's, most people say if the Nets are going to win, it's going to be a 7-game series. I don't know what it is. Something's just telling me Nets in 6. Now, look, there's a lot of variables. I talked about it. Ben Simmons, Robert Williams, injuries, those things could all play a factor. But the way these teams are right now, that's my prediction. So we'll see what happens. So there you have it. I will wrap up this episode. Now we're going on 20 minutes. Let me know what you guys think about everything, the Cavs playing game, the series against the Celtics, what your prediction is. If you agree with me that as Nets fans, you're just maybe I'm just being spoiled by how great Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving have been lately, and that I'm not afraid. But I've always said this in the past: the team that has the best player on the court always has the advantage. Because when it comes down to it, in basketball, the team with the best player on the court wins majority of the time. Most of the time. And as of right now, in this playoffs series, as great as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are, Kevin Durant is the best player on the court. And I think Kyrie, you can make an argument that Kyrie is third behind Tatum. You could make that argument, and I wouldn't disagree with you on that because they have different skill sets. But 2 of the top 3 players in this series are on the Nets. So to me, that's advantage Brooklyn. And in the playoffs, it comes down to the stars. So there you have it. So once again, sorry, I got off the... Let me know what you guys think about everything, all right? My next NetsBoy episode probably be around after Game 2. That's usually what I do when the playoffs happen. 2 games, episode, 2 games, episode, and so on and so forth. So let me know what you guys think about everything. And until then, NetsBoy's super excited for Sunday and going to be ready to roll. This is NetsBoy, signing off.